Hey, this is Josh Hoover, aka Fat Joey from The Walking Dead, and you are listening to Cinik Radio.
Hello, this is Ross Marquand.
This is Cooper Andrews.
Hi, my name is Coleman Domingo.
Hey, I'm David Morrissey.
Hey there, I'm Greg Nicotero, and you are listening to
the Cinik Radio Podcast. Now, your hosts, Igrihe and Cinik.
And you're listening to the Cinik Radio Podcast, and I'm your host, Cinik. And joining me, as always, my co-host and your friend and mine, Igrihe. And on this week's show, I get the extreme honor of sitting down with not only one of the most iconic saviors, but an all-around good dude, as Josh Hoover joins the program. We discuss The Walking Dead, life in Hollywood, and the fact that Negan, surprisingly enough, wasn't the most intense person he was on screen with. We're also joined by the awesome people from The Walking Dead Underground on Facebook Live as we review Fear the Walking Dead's latest episode, Close Your Eyes, because we are the Cinik Radio Podcast. Like, listen, subscribe. Most importantly, don't try this at home. I'm really excited for this week's guest because he's a talented and hilarious up-and-coming actor who's been seen on AMC hit shows such as *Halt and Catch Fire* and *The Walking Dead*. You could also see him in Russell Crowe's *Nice Guys* and just recently in Johnny Knoxville's *Action Point*. Josh Hoover joins the program. Your background is in improv, studying under the Groundlings and the Uptight Citizens Brigade, and then you've done some theater. How did it prepare you for your movie and TV roles? And would you suggest it to all young actors?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's a couple of things in there. I never worked with Matt and Trey, so that's, I did one of their musicals. They were not a part of, producing it or making it. But yeah, Matt and Trey, huge fans. I've always wanted to do Book of Mormon. That's a dream. But yeah, I did Cannibal, the musical. That was a really good show. And then the other thing, Groundlings and Upright Citizens Brigade. I focus more on improv and sketch comedy. And I definitely recommend it. I think grinding your teeth or getting comfortable in front of people is definitely a big part of this business. You have to be able to do, last minute adjustments or improv in a scene. It all falls into line with acting. So I definitely say get some class or some training. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that have raw natural talent, and those people are hilarious too. I'm not one of them. I like my training.
In the movie *The Nice Guys*, you were at odds with Russell Crowe's character, where he takes your head and slams it into a table. What was shooting that scene like, seeming that he's been known to be slightly intense?
Yeah, I think that is definitely a precursor going in, is you're working with Russell Crowe. That's going to be, But honestly, he was nice, man. He was a really, really fun guy. I mean, I don't know if I've told this publicly, but here it goes. When I was shooting that scene, we were going back and forth, and, we had to set up the stunt of me getting my face slammed into the glass, and Russell was going back and forth from, set to his trailer or was holding or whatever. And I was a little nervous that he didn't know what we were doing in the next part because it was so technical with, putting my face down all the way, pulling it back up, slamming it down. I'd hit my hand on the table, not so much my face. But then we did a lot of shots where my face was already on the table and I just whipped it backwards. So he comes back and I'm just like, hey, Russell, this is what we're doing for this part, just so you know. He goes, listen, mate, I'm going to grab you by the back of the head. You're going to do whatever you need to do. What I need from you is for you to stop being such a little pussy. And I was like, I don't know. That made my experience. It was, I died laughing. Shane Black died laughing. Everybody. It was fun. He was goofy. He was fun. It was a nice 2-3 hours of work.
Were you a fan of The Walking Dead pre-casting? And what was your reaction to landing a role on TV's biggest show?
Yeah, that was a weird one, man. I was not a big fan of the show just because I am not a zombies guy, or I'm not any kind of supernatural kind of stuff. I don't like blood. I don't like gore. So I wasn't exactly the ideal candidate. But having local representation in Atlanta, that was such a common one to audition for. I think I'd auditioned for it 2 or 3 times before. And everybody always had their Walking Dead stories about how close they got. But I got the audition. I was in New York. I was with a really good buddy of mine who was on *Halt and Catch Fire*, August Emerson, and we were seeing Broadway shows. Like, we were just going to see a lot of theater because I enjoy theater. And we went and saw The Color Purple that night, and Oprah sat in the row behind us, and it was kind of weird and just like a crazy night. And I get home and I go, oh my God, I have this self-tape I have to do. It's due tomorrow. And, the 3-hour difference. Or no, that's the same coast, so it wasn't as bad. But we were up till 2 a.m. filming that audition for Joey. And, yeah, I sent it in. 2 days later, they said, how fast can you be back in Atlanta? And I was like, I can be there tomorrow. And I bought the ticket, and the rest is history. It was kind of nuts. I was shooting *Halt and Catch Fire*, Walking Dead, *Halt and Catch Fire*, and then I think I was doing *Diary of a Wimpy Kid* at the same time. Like, it was one of the busiest times of my life, and I loved it.
You have been in a ton of roles, both TV and movies, but has The Walking Dead brought you the most notoriety?
Oh, totally. I mean, The Walking Dead is its own beast, man. I love The Walking Dead, and I didn't finish that thought. I mean, I didn't start watching the show, but once I got into it, and now Cooper's on it, and I love watching him, and I don't know. I'm I'm a big fan of Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So once they got him on the show, I was just like, okay, this is turning into a show I like. So I've been a really big fan since I've been on the show, and I don't know, all the fandemonium and awesomeness that comes along with it has been great. I would definitely say that that's probably the biggest thing that I've done, notoriety-wise or, fan-wise. Action Point was pretty cool. Getting my name and face on a movie poster kind of situation, that was pretty big and pretty cool. But yeah, I think Walking Dead, it's like the Friends of our days or the Seinfeld of our day. It's like one of those crazy TV shows that will never be measured up to. So it's pretty nice to be a part of it.
And the cast, for the most part, is so approachable, and they're so down to earth and friendly. And I was at Walker Stalker Atlanta, and I wish I would have had a recorder with me, because I basically talked to Cooper for about 15 minutes. He stopped his line, and he was talking to my partner and I about music and everything else, and we're dying to get him on the show. We almost got him before Shazam, and we haven't been able to kind of link back up, but an amazing guy, friendly, down to earth. The fan base is just absolutely rabid for the show. Everybody that's ever been on there is instantly huge in the Walking Dead world. So, Josh, right now, cons are all the rage, including Walker Stalker. Have you done any of them, and are you interested in doing them?
It's a weird place for me with cons. Like, I like the idea. I've been to them before, and I've done like 2 or 3 now. I've never done a Walker Stalker. I know that they like have to invite you, and you have to have like a booking agent and all that kind of stuff. I had kind of a bad experience with like a new one when I first started doing it, so I just kind of got turned off. And I also feel really weird to, like, I don't know, charge people for stuff like that, but I get why the business is there and how these people are making their money. Will I do it again? Sure. I don't have anything planned, and I don't know. I'm not actively pursuing it. If there's going to be like a big Walking Dead one and they want to ask me to do it, then sure, I'm interested in seeing if my schedule aligns. But I love acting, and I love being in LA, and I love the opportunity that I have here. So the less I travel, the better audition-wise. So it's one of those things. My my agents love the idea of me being in the cons and all that kind of stuff, but I also like being home,
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, California is a big country. I'm sure there's a lot out of there. So you could probably find one to link up with if you really wanted to do it. I know that if the 87th person that played Jason in the Friday the 13th movies can get a line, I'm absolutely sure that you can, because you instantly became a fan favorite, not only to the fandom, but on this show. We loved your character from the word go. I mean,
and I would love to just meet those people, you know what I mean? But I just haven't been in the right situations yet. I haven't, I don't know. The ones that I've done, one was really fun, and Jordan Woods Robinson, his family like worked on that one, or like they were a part of that, and he Skyped in, and that was probably the best one I ever did. And it was very Walking Dead centric. The other ones were just like, oh, a guy from Walking Dead's here, and then it's like, who are you? And it's just a weird experience. I mean, you run into all these different characters, and I think it's definitely something I could pursue when I'm a little bit older. I don't know.
And you don't want to be that guy without the line. That poor guy just kind of sitting by himself. I was at a con a couple years ago, and there was one of the lesser Sopranos guys there, and just nobody was going up. And it was a shock to me because it was New Jersey, but you just felt so bad for him. You know, you just wanted to go up and say hello, so it looked like he had somebody at his table. I felt really bad.
There's that, but there's also just, you know, I like the acting side of it. You know what I mean? I really like the working on stuff and pursuing it. And I think you can get caught up in doing the cons, but no one's banging down my door, so I'm happy pursuing what I'm pursuing in life, you know?
Yeah, I'm good going to them, but as far as attending them, I'll hold off on that. So your time on The Walking Dead brought you face to face with, to this point at least, the scariest villain on the show. You were Negan's right-hand man, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan is a great actor, but was it slightly scary when they yelled action and he slid into that Negan persona?
Was I scared of Jeffrey?
Was it the transformation? Because everybody knows Jeffrey's like kind of a nice, cool, down-to-earth guy, but then that Negan look comes across his eyes when they yell action, and he's kind of talking with you but half threatening you with the bat, and that little flip of the script about were you nice to Lucille? I mean, what's that like, that transformation when they yell action?
That was completely comfortable. That was my favorite scene to shoot, I'd say, just because, I mean, that was the first time I worked with Carl, and it was a pretty good scene, and I knew that was in the comics, and I got the comic book. So I was very excited for that scene, just for the moment of it. Shooting it with Jeffrey, I didn't feel too intimidated, but at the same time, like, yeah, he's one of those guys you just get along with, and he's friendly and really nice, and I'm a huge fan, so I wasn't necessarily as intimidated as I was just excited to do it, you know?
It makes sense. It's kind of surreal in a way. I mean, you're basically in a comic book at that point, and this guy, he just knows how to act. The way he does Negan is so close to perfect.
I think the way you say it too about him, the way he just turns it on, I don't see him turn it on. And I think that's what's amazing about acting, is like, if you can just be yourself or be the person that everyone else knows. I mean, obviously he's not killing people while we're working, but like that maniacal turn that he does is just so good and so effortless. I don't want that to sound like a bad thing, but he's so bad so well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. He is absolutely top tier, and that character is so interesting and so complex, and he's almost like a snake that you don't see in the grass, because you're walking along and everything is fine, and next thing you know, he just bites you. He's got that disarming way about him, and the second you're disarmed, he kind of just snaps at you. Negan is probably the best character I think Kirkman has ever written, and I think that if they have done anything right in the course of the show, he translates to the small screen perfectly. You said you became a fan after casting, but with major cast members being killed off and departing, what are your thoughts of the direction of the show?
Oh, I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I'm completely out of it. Like, I tell Cooper not to tell me anything, even though I know he can't tell me anything. There's still that kind of like, I don't want to know. I just want to find out the way everybody else finds out, or even a couple of days later than that. I mean, Rick leaving is a shock. I don't know what they're going to do this season. I know Angela Kang is taking over, and I'm pretty sure she wrote some of my episodes, or wrote one of the episodes that I was in. And I loved her. I thought she was amazing. I was really happy with her, and I think she's going to take the show in a really good direction. I don't know. I'm just as dumbfounded, and I don't know. I haven't read ahead in the comics. I don't really know what's going to happen. I know there's the all-out war and all that, and I know what should happen, but yeah, they take their liberties and they do it well.
Well, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you about the tragic day that Joey met his maker at the hands of Daryl. Tell me about the shooting that scene and what the feeling was on set.
It's almost like, when you're done with a job, or like everybody has like, oh man, it was really fun, I'm bummed you're leaving, like that kind of feeling. And I already knew a lot of the set people, because a lot of the crew, a lot of the not the writers, but the script coordinator, Amy Lacey, was on *Halt and Catch Fire*. So we had like a bunch of the same people. Like one of the drivers, Sherry, was on *Halt and Catch Fire*. So it felt like home again. And one of the camera operators, Steve, he was on *Halt*. So it was nuts to have that moment again with those people, because I just had it on *Halt* with them. But it's a beautiful thing about this job, man. You can last a long time. You can do something short as long as you have a good time, and as long as you make something you're proud of. Then it's very rewarding. It's a good feeling when you do get killed and you see the blood all over the place, and then you have Tom come up and take a picture with you and go, "Wow, that's your brains all over the place," and then post it on social media. That was cool. You know what I mean? Like it was fun to have a moment in that show. I'm grateful.
Oh, by the way, that was a hell of a bit of acting. You pleading for your life. I really enjoyed that scene, and I was really proud of the work you did there, because I was like, you really felt like you were in the moment with him, where you were just pleading like, all you got to do is just walk away. I won't say anything. It was nothing less than amazing.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was. That was an interesting one to film, because I'd never really done a death scene before, so it's always interesting to see how you would act or how you would take it.
Well, was there any truth to AMC scaling back the gore a little bit? Was there more to that scene that we didn't get to see?
Yeah, I think that came out in an interview. One of the producers actually said that they toned it back. I don't really think that it had to do with my character necessarily. I mean, as an actor, I'm sitting at home watching the TV going, give me that other part, or give me the other scene that we shot, or whatever, like that's just a normal thing, to want to see what you worked on. But yeah, when we went back and forth on Twitter, Cudlitz and I, it was just kind of like, I said that they hit me twice, like Daryl hits me twice, and my first hit, I fall to the ground, get back up on my knees, and he hits me again. And it was just pretty graphic, and they had blood packets, and I got to get my head splashed with all this blood, fake blood everywhere. And yeah, they didn't even show anything post hit. I mean, you saw my body lying on the ground. But yeah, I thought it could have gone a little bit farther, and I would have liked to see it. I know my mom wouldn't have, but I would have liked to see how dirty it got, or how bloody and gory it got, even though I don't like that stuff.
Are you shocked in the season premiere how much they got away with as far as what Negan did to Glenn and Abraham?
I don't know. I'm not again, I don't like the gore. I don't like the violence. When we did the scene with Carl arriving to the Saviors, like when he shows up in the back of that truck and he shoots two of my buddies, who are the other Saviors, right next to me, like that was a rough day for me, because they were using like an AR-15 or something, and I'm not a gun guy. I'm one of those California liberal types that's just like, we don't need those kind of guns, we don't need that kind of violence. But yeah, it was really cool to watch. It was cool to see how the makeup team got creative and made Steven's eye pop out the side of his head, or see Abraham take it. It's definitely interesting to watch television, and it's one of those things you can't take your eye off. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of.
Well, I know that they wanted to make a statement in that scene, basically here's Negan, but at the same time, I'm shocked when I go to these cons how many young kids are in line to meet these people. I mean, people are letting their kids watch these shows as far as, as young as 5 or 6. And I have a cast iron stomach, and still to this day, I can't go back and rewatch that episode. It's hard to handle. It's hard to watch, especially with Steven, who, you'd been watching for the better part of 7 years. The fandom had grew attached to Glenn, and even though that you knew it was coming, it didn't make it any easier.
Yeah, I mean, that was rough. That's brutal television, but it got a lot of hype. It got a lot of people talking.
Well, and
So
that's the grand scheme of things. So you've lived in New York, and then you were down towards Atlanta for the show, and you're out in California. We've been Instagram friends for a while now, and you are a bit of a foodie. So where in the country do you say has the best food? East Coast, West Coast, or the South?
oh man, I mean, I like it all, as you've probably seen on my Instagram or something. Yeah, I mean, if you want like really good Southern kind of food, then Atlanta is a great place to be. There's a place called Buttermilk Kitchen right there in Buckhead, and it's one of the best restaurants I've ever been to. Uh, LA has amazing, amazing food. I just had this amazing pasta the other night at this place called Osteria Mama, and I love traveling. I love eating. Chicago,
Oh,
all
the
over the
pizza.
place.
The pizza in Chicago is just amazing. New York pizza, you can say what you want, it's great, but you have a Chicago pizza, it's almost life changing.
Yeah, you're in New York. You said, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite pizza place?
That's really hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of really good places, and all of them seem to be either Ray's or Famous Ray's in the city. But there are a lot of amazing pizza places in the area, that's for sure.
Have you been to Prince Street?
I have not.
See, that's my favorite pizza in New York. I lived there last summer and was there at least once a week getting their pepperoni squares. And it's not even like thin crust traditional New York, but the pepperoni square that they do there is the best.
Well, if you were still on The Walking Dead, they would have to call you Not So Fat Joey. Since The Walking Dead, you've lost a ton of weight. What have you been doing, and what's your secret?
Yeah, I mean, I work out. I've been working out and I've been trying to eat healthier. I had that movie premiere for Action Point in June or May, and I set a goal to be, a little lighter, a little fitter for the red carpet, just to have that fun moment in life. And it was cool. It was fun. I do want to continue to eat healthy and work out. I love roller skating. I love going to the gym and, the elliptical dancing. I'm a big fan of moving. So I've been enjoying it, and yeah, I like what I am. I like who I am. I like to work as the kind of guy that I am. So I'm not necessarily trying to change my type completely, but yeah, I enjoy being healthier. It's been fun.
Well, I'm a little bigger myself, and I was always wondering, does it help you or hurt you when it comes to casting?
Well, it honestly depends, man. I mean, I've had it be both ways. Like when I was up for Book of Mormon, I went out for the Broadway show. I think they said I was too big at one point, so I lost like 20, 30 pounds, and then I was too old. You know what I mean? It's like it's one of
Bastards.
those things where it's just like, all right. I mean, if you are a little bit chubbier, I feel like you have a boyish youth to you, and now that I've lost a good bit of weight right now, I feel like I'm growing into my maturity a little bit, which is good and bad. But I'm happy. I'm happy. It's got to be for you. It doesn't have to be for casting. I mean, if I get to a point where someone's like, yeah, I want you to be 350 pounds, pack on some weight, and, be this guy for this movie, then that's something I can look at myself and say, all right, let's do this for this movie. But I'm not going to. I wouldn't be happy being that guy in my regular life. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. So you were in Action Point with Johnny Knoxville and some of the other Jackass guys.
Yeah, Chris Pontius and Johnny. Yeah.
Are they as crazy on set as advertised?
I guess that probably answers it a little bit. It's like they are professionals. They're adults. So they have their times when they're completely serious and they have to do their work. But then, yeah, there's times when we just have a scene laid out where we're just supposed to be interacting with a porcupine or with some kind of animal. Like we had a goat charge at us or some bear stuff. Like the Jackass side completely comes out, and it's just like I see how these guys had so much fun doing this, but I also see why some of them have the scars that they have.
Yeah, it makes sense. I've seen and heard Knoxville on a few recent interviews, and it seems like he's kind of scaled it way back. I mean, he has stories where his eye popped out, but now he's a dad, and it seems like he's kind of slowing it down a little bit, which is good, because I think outside of the physical gags, he's an amazing actor. He really can. I don't think he's given the credit he should for the acting that he does do. He'll always be the jackass guy to some people, and I think that sometimes it's hard to shake stigmas like that.
Oh, completely. I mean, I think he's done some really good work in a lot of movies. I went through his library or his work while we were filming together and watched some of those movies, like the John Waters. I forget the name right now, but that one was so good, and he was so great in that. But yeah, he definitely. I mean, his eye popping out and all that happened on this movie, so he hasn't scaled it back too much. He broke his wrist. He got, I don't know how many concussions, but I think it was more than 5 concussions. Broke his rib, broke his wrist, broke that eye bone where keeps your eyeball in, and it popped out twice. And yeah, I don't need to see stuff like that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to see a 40-plus-year-old man go off a slide and land face first on the ground. Like, I don't need to see that anymore. So I checked it off the bucket list. Doesn't have to be something that I don't know. I loved working with Johnny with that kind of stuff. So it was fun to be able to experience that. And then when they pushed me past my limits to do a stunt or two, like, that was fun, and I'll always remember it.
Oh, and it's hard too because he's such a likable guy. If it was somebody you hated, it's just somebody you detest. All right, well, he goes in, he gets beat up, and it's no harm, no foul. But Knoxville is sincerely a likable guy, so it's kind of hard to watch when it's somebody you actually have something you invested in.
But I mean, on the other hand, Pontius is like the sweetest human being I've ever met. Like, he's just one of the most genuine guys, and he's kooky and funny and all that. But like, when I would do the stunt, I had to do like this swing. What's the wires? You know what I mean? Like, you're going through the forest.
Zip lining.
Yes, I had to do a zip line stunt, and there was this part where Chris Pontius' character cuts the rope, and I go flying into the water, and I was nervous. They had a stunt guy. They had him in my clothes. They were going to let him do it. He did it, and I saw him be okay, and I was like, all right, I'm doing this. Let's do it. And I asked Pontius and I asked Knoxville, I was like, would you guys do this? And they're like, oh, absolutely.
I don't know if they're the litmus for safety that you want to check.
But they are when you're on set, and you know what I mean? Like, they were comforting, but I felt like I was in good hands. You know what I mean?
So upcoming, you have a short called The Date Lesson. What can you tell me about that project, and what do you have coming up in the future?
Yeah, I have this little short with my friend Bane. She's on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and she did that show, The Comeback, on HBO, and she was on Enlightened. Like, she works a ton, and she's amazing and hilarious, and she wrote these shorts. This is our second one, and she's doing the submissions for all the festivals right now. We're trying to get it into Sundance, or she submitted to so many different festivals. So it's been fun to do that and see what that world is all about. I've been auditioning a bunch. I just did a TV show that will come out in 2019. I'm not really supposed to talk about it until that comes out. I've just been working away, auditioning, and it's been good. My parents got to come to the live studio audience taping of that show that I did. I'm enjoying life in a good summer here in California.
Well, fingers crossed on that project, and hopefully you'll come back and talk to us about it when it gets greenlit and moves forward. So where is the best place for my audience to follow you on social media?
I am probably most active on Instagram, and that's where I probably interact with fans and people the most. So I love talking to Walking Dead fans and answering any of the questions and going back and forth on the DMs or all that. So I try to do that as much as I can. And yeah, I'm on Twitter too, but I don't feel like I use Twitter as much.
Twitter's an evil place. I advise everybody to stay off of it. I mean, James Gunn is absolutely living proof that nothing good can come out of being on Twitter. I mean,
yeah, that's awful to hear about that show.
it never goes away. It just doesn't. It'll follow you to the end of the earth. Josh, I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule and being here with us and sitting down and having this chat. And thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Another fine Sunday night watching Fear the Walking Dead. It was a pretty decent episode.
Yeah, not a lot happened. Unfortunately, we picked our first live show on a show that was very little action.
No, but there was some visually impressive things to watch. I mean, I really did enjoy the break a little bit. I mean, I'm a big advocate of the show needs to move. We need to see things happening and see things moving, and we didn't get it this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was fun to watch. I mean, you know, that walker in the tree just dangling out there, that was kind of cool.
A lot of emotional stuff to unpack as well. Charlie not being people's favorite character, but still a pretty influential and definitely important character as far as the whole Madison storyline goes.
Yeah, it's going to matter. And, you know, the fact that, you know, they kind of basically pulled each other out of whatever mess. I mean, because they were both in a real mess and in a place where they were trying to get away from everything and maybe end themselves. And they kind of saw the strength to pull each other back. I mean, there was some story to look in deep here.
To me, it was a very special after-school edition of Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, we were just missing somebody in a plastic bubble, really. Where are they building basements that hold water so well? That's one of the things that I mean, I've gotten water in my basement before, but oh my God. I mean, I'm waiting for the ark to roll by any moment here, because it's really, really just raining so hard that they got that much water that fast. Because first they were standing in like knee deep, all of a sudden they're struggling to keep their heads above water, and it didn't seem like much time had passed. I'm like, are they in the river? Is that where they built this house? They're in the river?
It very well might be. I mean, to me, and I don't know about it to you, does it seem like Alicia is almost Fear's version of Rick? At this point, she's kind of playing with house money. She's got nothing left to lose. Yet, she's got none of her family left, but she wants to stay as far away from everybody as possible. What is it about the human condition that when you're emotionally wounded like that, when you should be surrounding yourself with people, that you kind of run from them instead?
Yeah, and I don't understand it, because normally what you need to do at that point is you need to surround yourself with people that are going to help you. And there are those kind of people. I mean, I've watched people go through traumatic experiences that just cut themselves off, and no matter what you try to do to help them, they really want to just have nothing to do with anybody, and you watch them go down the downward spiral. They just go worse and worse and worse all the time. And you know, we have a comment here that says that it seems like this season would be a little more fast-paced, but it's moving too slow. And right now, that's pretty true. And the first half of the season, I blame that on adding new characters, because they have to develop relationships between characters. But that relationship has been developed, and now they have everybody split off. I think it was a mistake myself. I don't like it, because they do better when they get more things together.
Yeah, the group dynamic works, and for some reason the show is anti-group. Small pairings. I guess it's so we get to know the newer characters, and they get to build relations with the older characters. But for some reason, they just don't want them all working together. And we've only got a few episodes left, so they really do need to pick up the pace. And the big selling point of this second half of the season was the storm. So we've now seen it come and go in the span of 1.5 episodes. So I have a feeling that the rest of the season's going to be bit by bit how it affected each of the pairings. So we probably won't see another big group get-together till maybe the finale.
Yeah, and that's a mistake. I mean, because that's not going to get us moving anywhere along. Because right now the story is stuck. They're not going anywhere. They're not accomplishing anything. And that's a problem. Because you need to have things happening to keep people interested in a show like this. And this has kind of been the problem with Fear most of the time, is they don't spend a lot of time in a real story, something that'll engage you. And when that happens, you lose viewers. And that's why it's on during the summer instead of on, like... If this was doing better, they could literally go Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead back-to-back during the regular season. And they're not. And they're not doing it because it just doesn't draw the ratings.
Well, I like the fact that they're kind of separated, and I like the fact that they're running into each other, because then it feels like the break from regular Walking Dead isn't so much. I mean, it doesn't take so long. You have something to get you through, something to keep you interested. Now, I'm not quite convinced that we're going to need a third show, which Kirkman kind of dropped during Comic-Con, unless they do something completely different. And Ryan said that last week. Like, we've already seen these two versions, so you're going to have to do it completely different to kind of pique the interest of most people. I've noticed that a lot of the straight-up Walking Dead fans don't even watch Fear. And I may agree with them for the first 2.5 seasons, but it's really picked up over the last, season and a half.
And it has. And some of that was just they were ramping up their story, which worked out well. I mean, the original cast that was here was doing well, and then they got a little more excitement when they brought Morgan over, who can survive by himself, according to another comment we got. You need a group unless you're Morgan. Maybe Carol, too. Carol has done pretty well on her own most of the time. She always comes out pretty much unscathed wherever she goes. But we're not talking about them. I mean, these people have all shown basic inability to survive on their own. They always needed at least one other to come out of it. And I think if either one of these two in tonight's episode were in that house by themselves for very long, this episode would have been about 15 minutes long, and that would have been it.
Well, there wouldn't have been much of a struggle. I mean, all you got to do is give Carol a stop sign, and she'll take out half the walker population in the area. But the first kill of the show, well, the only kills of the show really go to Alicia with that sharpened piece of metal, which I believe was a gun barrel at one point. I mean, are you impressed with that weapon? It seems to be one of the few signature weapons in the Fear universe other than Morgan's bowstaff.
Yeah, what it is it's a machine gun heat shield. It's so that when you're firing the machine gun, you can still grab it by the end of the barrel and pick it up and move. It dissipates heat quickly, so it works well. But I mean, I remember early in the season, they show us basically where it came from in one of the episodes. And it's very unique, and it's really amazing. One of the times she killed somebody with it, she just hung it out in front of her, and they just walked onto it. And I thought that was pretty cool kill for a walker kill.
And it seems to pierce the skin and go up to the brain very easily, which, very low res. She doesn't need to be very strong to use it, which is kind of neat. One thing I don't seem to ever remember on the regular Walking Dead is them using a storm like they have over the last couple episodes to kind of ramp up the intensity. Did you think it was a good backdrop for the episode, and did it make it seem like it was more dangerous than it normally is?
Not really. Last week when the storm started, that really it got me excited. There was some stuff going on, walkers just flying through the air. That kind of got me excited, but they were in a house for the most part. The things weren't blowing out, not like the roof came off or anything. I think this one was more about a character study and what was going on in the episode itself versus literally trying to make the storm a problem. The storm really ended up saving them in the end because it's what knocked that tree walker down and opened the door for them.
Yeah, that was from the files of Extremely Convenient. I could almost hear Ryan George groaning at that writing decision. After killing the family inside the house, Alicia runs around, gathers all the photos, takes them outside, and puts them with the family. What do you think was behind that move? Do you think there was some guilt, or do you think she's just still dealing with her own bullshit?
Well, I think it might be a little of both. But mostly it's probably her own stuff. It's one of those things when you lose your family the way she did, it's going to stick with you a little bit. And so her realization that the whole family was still there basically moving around as walkers was probably a little bit difficult. And then seeing the pictures of all of them together, and then coincidentally, just all laying together once she took them all out, they almost basically laid in the same order as the picture on the mantle. That had to be a little weird and a little surreal for somebody. It was a neat, almost gag that played pretty well. So that was kind of a neat thing that they did, and I got to give it to them. They come up with some neat stuff to see. A lot of things are convenient. A lot of things don't move very fast, but if you just watch, there's some neat stuff to see in the show.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I don't want to go out on a limb here, but the walker stuck in the tree was one of the coolest things that I've seen on the show. He's just kind of hanging there, being blown in the wind. I really like the visual of that, and it did come in later in the episode, and I was a little worried that we were going to kind of get a Carl situation where, remember the walker stuck in the mud outside of Herschel's farm where he's throwing rocks at it and he doesn't kill it and it comes back and it bites Dale? I was a little worried that we were going to get that, but they went the complete opposite way with it. So that was kind of good, but I really enjoyed that, especially Charlie getting face-to-face with it, where, it looked like she was about to almost give herself over. And that was really reminiscent of the Walking Dead comic book and how Carol died. So I found I found the visual very interesting, and I found the way they used the walker great up until the end.
And, that's the thing that they do is they build interesting walkers, which makes this interesting when the characters aren't necessarily driving the right things. And the comments we keep getting are saying the same thing. This season has been slow. And you're right. The season has been slow, and that's the detriment of the show right now, is that it's just not moving. There's no real adversary right now. Right now the adversary is the storm. But, what are they going against? So there's no adversary. There's no unity. Nobody's together. What's the point? What are we going after right now? And they're going to need to figure out a way to start resolving some of this kind of quickly, because they're losing viewers, I think, very rapidly, like huge percentage points every week when they don't have anything going.
Yeah, that's a great line, too, about the master lock. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, it's locked. They're screwed. I thought maybe she was going to shoot through the door and try to bust the lock, which would have been the world's best shot. But instead, they just have a random corpse fall on it and bust it open. My problem with what's going on with it is that they bring in these great characters, and they're really well-written characters, and I don't think they quite know what to do with them yet. And that's a problem. I mean, they may need to look into new writers, and I really hope the show survives past this season, because I love me some John Dorie, and Morgan, you can't ask for anything more. I don't like that they're teasing the fact that they all might be headed back east already, because the story's yet to begin here. And I think it's doing these characters a disservice unless they're worried that the show's not going to last.
And I mean, when you tease toward that, are you meaning to tell me that the only living groups are on the far west side of the country and the far east side of the country, and there tends to be conflict on both sides, but there's nothing in between to happen? That would be awful writing. That would be pretty poor.
Well, we fast-forwarded the Morgan journey, which I really could have watched a season of Morgan going from Virginia to Texas. Maybe we get that in reverse. Maybe we get to see whoever leaves with that group headed back to Alexandria. My big thing, and it's just a heartbreaker for me, because there's two things that bother me every single time. Every time Rick Grimes breaks down, I break down. And if Morgan gets back just to find out Rick's gone, I mean, that's going to absolutely rip my heart out. To go through all this and for him not to be able to say goodbye to Rick would be the epitome of terrible.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do, though? I mean, it's more an Andrew Lincoln decision than I think it is a Rick decision, because Rick is still kicking around in the comic books. It's still centered around him. Andrew Lincoln is just ready to hang up his spurs, basically. He's like, I've had enough of this. I'm not going to be the sheriff anymore. Let's move. I'm really hoping that they don't cross them too much. Like, if they have an outline cross, because let's say this fear group decides they're going to head toward Canada, and they just happen to go within 100 miles and catch a couple of them out on a scavenging trip or something, great. But I don't want a full cross between Fear and The Walking Dead, and I think that would be a mistake, and that would basically spell the end of both shows.
Yeah, I agree. How much must you hate somebody to go out in the middle of whatever's going on there? I'm guessing it's a hurricane because of the setting. How much must you hate somebody to, rather than be safe and ride out the storm in the same house with somebody, that you're going to go out and try to make a break for it? I dislike some of my coworkers, but if it's storming bad enough at work, I stay inside in the break room for sure.
Yeah, and that's just rain or light snow. You'd be like, nah, I don't need to be outside. Yeah, you really got to despise somebody, especially this kind of storm. I mean, my Lord, it's full-on hurricane out there, which, they must be right there in the Gulf of Mexico area if they're getting that much rain that fast. There's just no other way to explain it, and you're still going to go out? I mean, why not just, stand outside and hold, a big metal rod over your head for a while and just see if you can just end it all, get struck by lightning? Do something.
And dealing with her anger, Alicia seems to forget that Charlie risked her life to go out there and save her. I don't know if I was in Charlie's position, especially since, she's waving that sharp piece of metal around saying that, I'm going to have to kill you and it's going to ruin me, if I would have kind of risked that. I mean, you don't go out there, you don't help her, kind of problem solved.
That would solve the problem really quickly, and then maybe we get back to some interesting stories. Because this was fun to watch. It was visually impressive. It was really gray all the way through, which kind of fit the tone of the story. But it was good to look at. I just think that they could have done it in about 15 minutes and maybe run 4 of them in and get us into some story. Like, if they want to do this where they want to show us the pairings and what's going on, great. But don't spend hour episodes on one pairing. Do it in like 15, move on to the next pairing. Do it in 15, move on to the next one. At least we're feeling movement then, just because you have multiple stories going on at the same time.
I haven't heard the Dwight rumor that said in the comment, but if we're not going to get a full crossover, I kind of don't want a crossover at all. If we're going to keep the shows separate, let's keep the shows separate. Morgan's enough. We needed a leader, especially since, for whatever reason, they took out Madison, which I completely disagree with, and so does the rest of the cast. I mean, Lenny James even said part of the reason that I came over here was to work with Kim. It didn't make much sense to me. I'm kind of hoping that maybe she's not dead, but all the signs point towards Madison less Fear the Walking Dead going forward.
Apparently you're not the only one that doesn't like Charlie either, because there it says, I don't like Charlie, let her fly with the walkers. The flying walkers are probably my new favorite thing with The Walking Dead and Fear this season. It just makes me think, like, maybe they ought to learn how to outfit them with, like, trench coats or something, so they're more like flying squirrels. They could get better air, go further distances. That might be kind of fun.
Well, you could always make a walker kite as well. I mean, that would be really fun, really interesting. You put it in a nice parachute and you can kind of walk it behind you.
I'm not sure Michonne hasn't done that. I mean, she's done all kinds of other things with walkers. She's always like the walker ingenious person. Her and Eugene, really, because like he's the one that's like, if you cover them with metal, they won't degrade as fast, and you can have them on the wall for a long time. Works out well.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you definitely could keep them as kind of lawn ornaments that way. Dangerous lawn ornaments, but I mean, is it any worse than the lawn darts we used to play with as kids?
Yeah, that shows how crazy our generation is. Lawn darts, if anybody remembers those. If you could find some of those, like, those would probably be the coolest weapon to use in the zombie apocalypse. Having some lawn darts to huck at people, that'd be great.
You look at the dynamic between Charlie and Alicia, and they're kind of in the same place emotionally, don't you think? I mean, they're lost in guilt and grief and despair, and it kind of makes them the perfect companions for each other if they don't kill each other, right?
They are. They're basically the same person 15 years apart in age. And, does it work well to put two people like that together? Well, yes and no. It's got potential. It's got some interest to it, but the most part, it's still Charlie. Charlie's still there. And that's the problem, is she's really not a fan favorite character, and they didn't do much in this episode to write that, because there have been other characters in all of the Walking Dead shows that weren't necessarily people's favorites, but they were able to put them in an episode and either get people to empathize or kind of come back over to the other side, where it felt like they were somebody that they might like. I mean, even Eugene, like, for 2 seasons almost, people were just big on hate Eugene. And now all of a sudden everybody's like, yeah, Eugene again, which I told you all along Eugene was the man, but that's just me.
Well, I started to doubt towards the end. Now, I'm going to ask the room this as well as you. Did they make Charlie a sympathetic character in this episode? I mean, did you feel bad for her at any point? She went from one of the most hated people on the show, but by the end, were you just kind of rooting for her a little bit?
No, I really wasn't still. It made me feel more for Alicia, but not for Charlie. Like, there's just something about her, like, just snotty. I don't know. There's something about her that just irks me. And it didn't help that, like, most of her decisions earlier in the episode seemed selfish. And then later in the episode, like, whining that, like, we're not going to live no matter what the other one was, what Alicia was telling her. We're not going to live. I didn't like it. I didn't like, the pessimism. I mean, the world is bad enough as it is. If you don't have any kind of positive attitude that there's a way out of a problem, it just lends itself to bigger problems.
it seems like the room is right with you because it's a no across the board. I don't know, maybe I'm a little tired, I'm a little emotional, or a little sappy tonight, but I by the end of it, I was kind of feeling bad for Charlie. I kind of was rooting that they would find some sort of even footing after the terribly written, I'm going to run to the basement even though I know it's the most unsafe place in the house scene. I was kind of hoping that, and I'll tell you the one thing that they did do in this episode to ramp up the tension was the beach scene really had me on the edge of my seat wondering if that was the end. I was waiting to hear a bang. I was waiting to see Alicia's arm reach across. I thought
Look
that
at
Charlie...
the flowers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that the new look at the flowers is, close your eyes, let's go to the beach. Did you think Charlie might have been done for?
I thought it was coming. I was right there with you. And if that would have happened, I might have felt a little worse for Charlie. That might have, turned my mood around. But the fact that she was still there, just, still doing her stupid things like seeing an overturned school bus. We got to go find them. We don't know how long that bus has been there. That's just crazy. What do you mean go find them? The first thing that you run into, there's another walker coming after you. Yeah, children, right?
Yeah, it looks like that they're going to be some sort of a pairing, which oddly enough, everybody's in pairs at this point, except for Morgan, who really doesn't need anybody. But I loved the show despite the terrible decisions and the lazy writing. Them getting stuck in the basement was terrible. There's no other way to put it. The whole episode seemed like it was building towards putting Alicia in a position where she had to kill her. If you're Alicia at this point, would you have killed her?
Well, it almost, at this point, seems like the right thing to do for Charlie, which maybe if you're trying to be a better person, that's a moral struggle that's hard to get by. And maybe if you're trying to be a better person for Alicia, that's hard to get by because, it's a child, it's a living person. That's a real weird moral conundrum. Now, I guess if I were Alicia, yeah, maybe. But I'm not so much like our commenter said I would have snapped her neck. That's a little vicious for me, but, I wouldn't have had her in the car and shot her. I'd have taken her somewhere else.
Yeah, we all saw in Pulp Fiction that if you shoot somebody in the car, it makes a bit of a mess.
Yeah, you got brains all over the back seat.
IG, I loved the premiere, but this to me was definitely a step back writing-wise. I'm glad Alicia found some emotional recovery. I give the episode overall a 4.
Yeah, I might have given it a little higher than that, like a 5, but that's because I'm just feeling generous tonight. And the 5 is based purely on how it looked visually, because visually I really enjoyed the episode. It's probably what kept me able to sit here and watch it for the entire hour that it was on. Visually, it was good looking. Alicia was not bad in it. Charlie, she needs to look at some flowers.
The comments seem to be the same all across the board. It's their least favorite episode, bad writing. Alicia's smart. I mean, it's the same. We all feel the same, and they need to pick this up. I mean, it doesn't help that I like Alicia, and I think she's on the road to be a real badass, but she's not. She was part of the problem before they brought in these other characters. She was sort of unlikable and at every turn, less likable than even Madison. And then you pair her with Charlie and you put all these emotional stakes and you want people to care. And it's just hard. I mean, you probably should have put her with somebody new and had her go through this stuff, even though it wouldn't have registered the same emotionally. I think that would have been a better route to go. I mean, her with June or her with John or Al, I think people would have cared a little more about the episode. And I'm interested to see how places like IGN and Metacritic review this episode.
Yeah, wouldn't it have been a better choice? We lost some main characters at the beginning of the season. Wouldn't this have been an apropos time to bring in a new character or stuff and use that to bridge the gap? It could have still been Charlie, but you could have brought in somebody... because the problem is Alicia isn't enough to drive a Charlie story. It's kind of like trying to watch a Meg episode on Family Guy. It just doesn't work. But, we needed somebody, or like you said, if we'd have had John Dory there, it could have worked. It could have been good. I still think they'd have done better doing four pairings in one episode, 15, 15, 15, and 15. It just took too long to play not much out. There was too much standing around, too much just wistfully looking into the distance, and that's the problem with it.
Well, I'm seeing 3s and 2s, so I felt bad writing a 4, but people obviously feel a lot stronger than I did. And of course, we pick our live show, the first one since you were sick last week, we pick our live show with nothing else going on it. Listen, the storm is on the poster. It was supposed to be a big deal in the show. How pissed off are you going to be if that's it for the storm? It's all done.
Oh my God, if that's it? We had a couple of people get wet basically, but nothing else really happened. I mean, I guess the other thing that could happen is, you could have like drop zombies then for the rest of the season, because there'd probably be a bunch of hanging out in trees that you'll be walking through the woods and all of a sudden they just come from the sky. But if this is it for the storm, that is just really, really poorly done. It can't be it. And I really hope that they see what they did. And I mean, they've got to have a bunch of people they can call in to start editing stuff together and like maybe change some of this or go in and reshoot the last episode so they can start pushing things faster. Something's got to change. This is just really poor use of our time so far.
Yeah, we did get a nice Walking Dead preview, which I like. And it looks like even though the war is over, the battle is far from being done. It looks like the Saviors and Rick's group, at least a selective part of Rick's group, are still going to continue to go head-to-head at every turn. So I'm really interested, and I'm excited for The Walking Dead to come back. It can't get here, Walkernado. That is absolutely the best comment ever. I can't wait for the season to start. I'm excited about it, and we'll keep doing this no matter how good or bad Fear is, and we'll continue to do this throughout The Walking Dead. IG, thanks for coming on with me. Thanks for the few people that were coming on and off and commenting and adding their 2 cents in. I love you guys. You're the best, and have a great evening, and we'll see you next Sunday.
And that's it for this episode of the Cinik Radio Podcast. I'm Igrihe. We had a great time bringing you this week's show. Please send all your comments, questions, concerns, and any crazy news stories from your neck of the woods to CINIKRADIO@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Look for us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. And find us on Twitter at CINIKRADIO. Continue to like, listen, subscribe, and share this with all your friends and family. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at CINIKRADIO.com. Available for download on iTunes.